Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a books beside my bed video for you. If you're new here, I film one of these every week where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading, and if you're very familiar with the series, welcome back. Just like last week, I will have my channel survey linked down below, so if you'd like to give me feedback on any of my videos, feel free to click that link. It will be in the description for every video for the foreseeable future. Even if you've already given me feedback and you want to give feedback on a specific video, feel free to do that, and you don't have to fill in everything, you can just fill in the parts that you want to. A very big thank you to everyone who has already filled it in. I have been going through everyone's feedback and I've been looking at the ways that I can adjust the content on my channel to better suit my viewers. A lot of people have been requesting vlogs, so if you are one of those people, can you please let me know what it is that you like to see in vlogs, because they're very unnatural for me to film, so I don't exactly know what it is that people like to watch in a vlog. Feel free to leave your ideas in the comments. And one thing that I did want to do, Marissa made a comment that she would like to see what the full painting behind me is. So I'm going to put a picture of it on the screen. I realized that a lot of people haven't actually seen this. I think I did have it in my original apartment tour video, but I don't generally show it. It's usually behind me. So that's what it looks like. It's one of my favorite things in my entire apartment. I found it totally by chance. It is a very nice painting in the background. It's very colorful. Now let's jump into the books, because I have 10 books to talk about today. I have been on holidays, so I have been reading a whole lot of books. So this is my reading week from the 27th of June until the 3rd of July. I read a total of 10 things. Most of them are novels. Pretty much all of them are romance books. There's one picture book in there, maybe a novella or a short story or two. We'll talk about it as we go through. I read a total of 2,853 pages, and my yearly reading total is 247 books. The first book that I read this week was The Room at Risk by Talia Hibbert. This was for my Read Digital prompt to read a book by a BIPOC author for June. It is a friends to lovers story with two main characters who met at university. You have Jasmine and Rahul, who met while they were studying, and it was kind of an unlikely friendship. They did have a one-night stand and then decided to be friends. Cut to the future, and Jasmine's apartment has been flooded due to a plumbing incident and she needs a place to stay, and so she asks Rahul if she can room with him at his place. And he's not initially sure whether that's a good idea because he's always had feelings for her, and living in close proximity brings a lot of their feelings to the fore. In this story, it is the hero who is head over heels for the heroine, and the heroine has never really entertained anything other than friendship with Rahul because she believes that she's not cut out for long-term relationships, and it is how they navigate that new change in circumstance for them. This one was really fun. I really enjoyed it, so it was a really enjoyable reading experience. Then I read Dirty Talk by Tara Crescent, which is the Dirty series book 2. It is an MFM menage story. There is Cassie, who works in the local cafe, and she has a sort of crush on these two guys who run a sex podcast together. James and Bennett run a really positive sex podcast, and they are very interested in Cassie, and they're both interested in her independently, but when they run an episode on menage relationships, they decide to see if it can work between all three of them. This was just really short, really interesting. I usually prefer MMF menages. I like the relationship between all of them, but in this one, James and Lucas are almost as close as brothers. So there is a relationship, but mostly the relationship is their relationship to Cassie. And I might pick up the first book in the series. I haven't decided yet. I also read Story Doctor by Buri Monty Pryor, which is a children's picture book. Buri Monty Pryor is an Indigenous author, and I have a separate review video that's already up on my channel, so I'll leave that linked on the screen. But this was a really great picture book, and it's one that I think people of all ages can definitely enjoy. So if you want more information, please go check out that video. I also read One from the Heart, which is a 3-novella bind-up collection by 3 Australian authors. This was sent to me last year unsolicited by Myra, so thank you very much to them. The authors are Nikki Logan, Daniel DeLorme, and Fiona Green, and all 3 novellas take place in the same small town around the same time. It's all based around a local community theatre that is under threat of being closed down. Nikki Logan's story is Tread the Boards, and in this one you have Mackenzie, who is used to working behind the scenes. Her family has had a rough history with performers, and so even though she secretly would really like to be on the stage, she knows that it's something that her family would never support. So she works behind the scenes, and then she stumbles across this homeless guy, and his name is Dylan, and he travels around the world, and she ends up inviting him to come and help her backstage so that he's got a place to stay, it's warm and dry, and he has selective mutism. So he struggles to talk to people if he doesn't have a really strong connection to them, and she really gives him that safe place and is quite understanding. Now, with this particular story, you have characters with hidden identities. There is a play that the theatre company is putting on. It's the final play, which has to do with one of the town's greatest heroes who went off to war and then went to Hollywood and became quite famous, but then never came home. And the play is about his life, and it reveals some potentially problematic elements to that, including suspected incest, so be aware of that going into it. There's also themes of family abandonment and lying. I should say this entire collection should come with a ton of content warning, so I'll just give you the individual ones for the individual stories. It is not as light and fluffy as it sounds. It is quite a heavy read overall, which I was not expecting, but I still enjoyed because I thought it did a lot more than I thought it was going to do. The second story is Set the Stage. This is by Daniel DeLorme. It is an MM romance, and it is a second chance romance between Gabe and Bruce, who knew each other as teens, but then they went their separate ways and they haven't spoken in a long time. And Gabe returns to the town to help his mother out because she's always been a volunteer for the theatre production, and he ends up finding himself being involved too, despite the fact that he really doesn't want to get involved. This one does deal with cancer, death of a parent, as well as alcoholic family members causing quite the stir. And then the final story is Take a Bow, and this one was by Fiona Green, and I think it was my favourite one of the three, but this one also has some really heavy topics. It follows Lexi and Mark, and it is their second chance romance. They met when they were teens, and at that point Lexi was only 15 and Mark was 17. Their parents found out and they were separated, and she never saw Mark again, and suddenly he's back in town with his daughter. Lexi is running the theatre company, so this final production is her last chance to save the theatre. She doesn't know if Mark is there to help her or hinder her. As they become reacquainted with each other as adults, they have to grapple with some things that happened in their past. So the content warnings in here, obviously you have a relationship that involved someone who was underage at the time. There is also a teen pregnancy, and there was also the death of a child. It's quite heavy, but I did really enjoy the collection overall, and I loved how the stories wove together. There's also an element of Banksy in here because the production that the theatre are putting together was a script that was handed to them mysteriously by this playwright who just randomly hands out production scripts to small community theatres, but no one knows who's truly behind them. And all of the productions always come with some hint of mystery and the potential to get some really good traction with the media because of the mystery surrounding the author. So it was a really fun collection, but definitely not one to read if you want something light and fluffy. I also read Wolf Rain, which is the third book in the Psi Trinity series and the 18th book of the Psi Changeling world. This one follows Alexi, who is a snow dancer lieutenant, and Memory, who is an E-Psi with a very strange variation, and she's been held captive for 15 years when Alexi finds her in snow dancer territory. I will have a full video for this coming out during the week. It's already scheduled, so it's a long one. So I will leave a link to that on the screen once it goes up. I really love this book. It's now going on my rereads list from the Psi Changeling world because it was just so much fun. Then I read Featherbed by Annabeth Albert. This is the first book in the Vino and Veritas series. It is an MM age gap romance. One of the characters is 42 and the other is in his mid-30s, I believe. We follow Harrison, who's recently transplanted from the city to Vermont with his mother to open a small bookstore and wine bar. One day his bookstore accepts a delivery of chickens which do not belong to the bookstore, and he ends up contacting the true recipient of the chickens, which is a man named Finn who runs a farm just on the outskirts of town. Initially, Harrison and Finn don't particularly like each other, but eventually as they get to know one another and as they begin to understand one another, they start a relationship that is only initially supposed to be a fling and then becomes something more. This one does deal with Harrison having fears that he is potentially not going to live very much longer because his father and his grandfather all died quite young, around 42, 43 years of age. So he's quite concerned that he's going to have health issues really soon, which makes him really reluctant to get into a relationship. So be aware of that going into it. I enjoyed it, and I'm very interested to try some of the other books in the Vino and Veritas world because they're all written by different authors set in the same town. I also read Forbidden Fling by Kat Taylor, which is the new pen name for Katie Robert when she is writing erotica short stories. So these stories do not have an HEA or a happy for now. They are just really short, steamy erotica novels. This one is an age gap romance between Nevaeh and Mr. Jones, who is the father of her current boyfriend. She ends up going on holiday with her boyfriend, thinking that they're going to be able to spend some time together, only he's invited two of his best friends plus his father, and she is not happy about it. Nevaeh and the father have this fling, so there is cheating involved in this story, and at the end they go their own separate ways. Very short, very quick and easy to read. I got this because I'm part of Katie's Patreon and she released it early for her subscribers. I also read Sailor Proof by Annabeth Elbert, which is the first book in her Shore Leave series. I received this for review on NetGalley. It is a new series that she is starting following Submariners, and it is an age gap romance with a brother's best friend trope and also fake dating. The submarine that Chief Derek Fox serves on is about to come home and everyone's about to have shore leave, and with all the traditions surrounding the first kiss after homecoming, Derek is a little bit frustrated because his ex-boyfriend's new partner is also on the same submarine and has won the first kiss rights. And in an effort to upstage them, Derek and his best friend organise for Derek to have a fake boyfriend meet him on shore, and his best friend organises for his younger brother Arthur to be there. So Derek and Arthur meet on the shore. They've known each other for many years by this point. They have this kiss which ends up going viral, and what was supposed to be a fake dating moment, temporary in time just to make Derek show up his ex-boyfriend, ends up turning into something a little bit more when Arthur's family invites Derek to their traditional family camping holiday. So Derek and Arthur go along and they enjoy spending time with one another, and Derek realizes that perhaps what he'd initially planned for his life is not necessarily what he truly wants now that he's experienced this. Does this book do anything new or exciting? Probably not, but it was definitely an easy read that I thoroughly enjoyed. I also read The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne, which I've been meaning to read for ages. This is the first book in her Victorian Rebels series. It is a historical romance between Farah Lee and Dorian Blackwell, and when Farah Lee was very young, she married a young Scottish boy called Dougal Mackenzie while they were both living in this orphanage, I believe. And when Farah Lee was inappropriately touched by one of the local priests, Dougal ended up killing him and was sent to prison. Flash forward to years in the future, and Farah Lee now works for Scotland Yard. She knows that Dougal has died in prison, and then one day she comes to work and she's there to transcribe an interrogation of a man called Dorian Blackwell, who is a notorious highwayman turned underworld boss in London. Dorian has a vested interest in Farah Lee, and that's because he knew Dougal in prison, and when Farah Lee's life is in danger, he ends up kidnapping her and stealing her away to Scotland to keep her safe. I really enjoyed this book. It was really fun. It's slightly on the darker side without being super dark, despite the fact that the reveal in this book is entirely predictable from the get-go. It was a really enjoyable read, and I would really like to continue the Victorian Rebels series at some point because I quite enjoyed the characters. And then finally, possibly the best book that I read this week, it's definitely the most feel-good book that I've read this week, is a book that you cannot judge by its cover or its title. So please don't, because it is truly fantastic and I would recommend it to anyone who wants a really good romance book. And that is I Married a Lizardman by Regine Abel. I was buddy reading this with Brie, Shay, Izzy, Tamika and Megan. I had an absolute ball reading it. It is a science fiction romance story about Susan, who is the third daughter in her family, and so she has very little prospects, and her only recourse is to turn to the Prime dating agency to try and find her a good match because she's not going to find one on her planet. She ends up being matched with a race of aliens that look like humanoid lizards, and her match is Oryx. And so she travels to Oryx's planet, and then the two have to get to know each other and learn each other's customs and how to relate to one another. This book has some really fantastic examples of communication in a relationship, both in terms of getting to know one another and accepting customs, but also how they navigate their sex life and how they find out what it is that the other person likes and what makes them compatible. There's also the side plot in this where Susan is a farmer and she's really skilled at what she does, whereas Oryx's people are not farmers and they've had quite a strong trauma in their past where they were subjected to slavery and they were made to work the land, which is very much against who they are. And so the very thought that Susan would do that is very confronting to Oryx's people. But they're also struggling because they are big corporations who are taking over their planet and who are driving down sales of their products. The different tribes are running out of money and they're struggling to survive, and Susan comes in with a really great plan for how to revive and support Oryx's villages and the people, and she does it just beautifully. She is such an amazing character, and Oryx is such a cinnamon roll of a hero. He was just amazing. The whole thing is just great. If I can get you to read any book from this week, please, please, please read this one. It looks weird, it sounds weird. It is honestly one of the loveliest romance books I've read in a long time. Those are the 10 books that I read this week. In the comments, let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on picking them up in the future. I really do hope you pick up I Married a Lizardman because it's going to be on my favorites list by the end of the year, I can tell you that now. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a lizard emoji down below because why not? I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.